is kind of cheap in here, isn't it?
Yeah. This is where I used to get all my alcohol from when I was little.
I can't believe they won't even say me with fags and drinking there. It's not even like I'm underage, so why do I need my ID?
I know, we'll have to try somewhere else.
And they've seen all that cheap drink as well.
The government makes money off taxing fags and booze. Yeah. But if they made it illegal, they'd lose too much revenue.
I know, I've seen all that as well. Rats have been encouraged to drink. I know loads of students that get off the faces because it's just so cheap. I heard on the news the other day that it kills off more people than other drugs like weed and that.
I know, like prescription drugs. Michael Jackson died of an overdose on prescription painkillers.
Drugs in everything though, aren't there? Nicotine's in fags, sugar's in everything, you know what I mean?
Caffeine's in tea and coffee. There's energy drinks like Red Bull and Relentless that just give you a buzz.
Yeah.
My mum drinks coffee just to stay awake at work. I guess some drugs are just not accepted like others.
See my dad? He likes to chill out every night and have a few beers. Whereas my gran, she likes to drink tea, she drinks it all the time, trust me. And then my sister, she smokes about 20 fags a day, but see me, I just like to have a spliff,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
My auntie, she takes Valium to calm her nerves and to help her sleep. But my little brother can't get enough of sweets and chocolate.
What about steroids, what bodybuilders and some athletes use? What about that? And what about legal highs? What's all that about? It's also confusing.
And so unclear.
We need more information and less contradiction.
More scientific facts our drugs can harm us. So we're asking, what's the score?
I think a drug is a substance that you use to stimulate the body so you feel different, make you feel better.
A drug is any substance which has an effect on the body or the behaviour or the mind. So we tend to define it down as those substances that have an effect on people's psychology, their behaviour and their body, but that some people choose to take for recreational reasons.
What a drug or a substance is a chemical which people take to change how their brain works, usually to make them feel good, sometimes to get rid of anxiety or stress. So it's just a chemical substance that people take.
We have quite a lot of people in our school who take drugs, like my age, so like 15, 16, 17. A lot of people just don't see it as being like a serious thing and they just think it doesn't matter, I'm not going to get addicted, whatever. But a lot of them don't realise, even though they're like quite intelligent people, not very aware of what happens because we're not taught. I don't think we're taught well enough.
It was just an experimental thing, really.
No, we don't do it. Look, some friends we know do it, but we've never done it before. We have a dream, but I guess it's kind of a social thing because, you know, when you go out it's what everyone's doing, so just join in with it, it's fun.
I think if you look at the statistics, there doesn't seem to be a particular rise in the number of young people who are experimenting with drugs. What there is a change in the drugs they're choosing to use. So young people aren't using any more than they ever did. If anything, less young people seem to experiment with drugs as young as they used to. But those who are experimenting with different drugs. And if you can have a look at, say, something like alcohol, less young people overall drink alcohol. So we think young people's drinking is going up, but actually less people do it. But those young people who do use alcohol are using a lot more, and therefore it's creating a lot more problems. So we may have more problems with young people's drug use, but not more young people using it.
As far as trends of young people using drugs go, I'm really pleased to be able to say that young people are using less. And year on year, since the year 2000, there's been a decrease in levels of drug and alcohol use amongst young people.
Getting understanding as to how much drugs are being used in this country and what the damage drugs are doing is actually very difficult, because some drugs are legal, like alcohol and tobacco. You can collect information on them relatively straightforwardly from sales, but also even just there, looking at the damage they do is quite tricky, because you've got to go to hospitals and count the number of people admitted for those reasons. With illegal drugs it's even harder, because you don't know what's being sold and you can't really get a very good handle on the damage except those people who go to hospital.
I'm 15, well nearly 15, and yeah, I do take drugs. What I like MDMA, ketamine, pills, TCI, TCB, MDMA, coke, speed. It's affected me in a good way. I've always had a really good time. I've known my limits and I've taken enough to have a good time, but I've seen other people thinking they're big and like it's like a competition with them how they've got to take like more than other people. If you take it wisely, then you're going to have a good time. But if you're irresponsible and abuse drugs, then it's not going to affect you right, is it really?
I just felt weird and I liked it.
Yeah, normally it's young people who are starting to experiment. There's a lot of links between substance misuse and age.
A lot of young people use drugs. We don't really know why. We don't have good research on what the drivers are, what the motives are, what the problems are. It's an area that we do need to do a lot more research on too.
Yeah, I suppose like people smoke weed to like chill out, or if they've had a stressful day, or if they just like smoking it. People like taking these when they go clubbing and stuff like that, and then acid and that, I don't know about that.
Why do young people want to experiment with anything? I mean, young people, it is the job of adolescents to experiment with all sorts of things, and they experiment and they take risks, and that risk taking might be about rock climbing or riding bicycles fast downhill, or it might be pushing boundaries and rules of parents, or it might be exploring chemicals. Young people do like to take risks.
They're experimenting with lots of things as teenagers, so I think that's when people are first introduced. I don't think they go searching or looking for drugs because they're a little bit unhappy.
Everybody else were doing it, but it weren't on like the peer pressure side of things. I just wanted to have like my own little evaluation of it, and I did enjoy it, so I don't regret it.
People take drugs for a number of reasons. Some people take drugs because it's fashionable and their friends do it, and they just do it to be like their friends. Other people take drugs because they have a psychological problem, and drugs actually help reduce the stress or the pain they're suffering. Other people take drugs because it makes them feel good and happy. So there's many different reasons.
I think I'd like to say that it's not just about young people. Throughout history, human beings have used substances, and we've looked for ways of altering the way we think and feel, and drug use being one of the easiest ways of doing that.
Sugar. It's legal, a stimulant, and it's found naturally in fruit in the form of fructose. Sugar may come from the sugar beet plant or from sugar cane. It is usually consumed by eating and drinking. Giving children large amounts of sugar can give them a sugar rush, which fades quickly, leaving the child irritable and wanting more. Sugar can cause dental problems, especially with fizzy drinks. Excess sugary food and obesity may cause diabetes. Caffeine. Legal stimulant, and it occurs naturally in tea and coffee. Contained in chocolate confectionery, Coca-Cola drinks, and in large quantities in energy drinks like Red Bull and Relentless. It is usually consumed by eating or drinking. Caffeine is a mild stimulant which increases heart rate and blood pressure. It makes people more alert and less tired. Effects start quickly and can last for a few hours. Large amounts can make people feel jittery, anxious, irritable, and cause headaches.
There's evidence to say that drinking coffee actually does not help you in the long term with your work and things. It works on a very short term, but then there's more negative side effects from it. So I would think that it's actually causing young people problems, giving them headaches and actually making them not be able to concentrate in the long run.
I don't know, I'd probably put nicotine somewhere in like Class C, Class B or something, because I smoke as well and it's hard to stop smoking, innit? Whereas I can smoke weed and then just not be bothered about it, but if I don't have a fag then my moods change.
Tobacco,
cigarettes,
nicotine,
fags,
snuff.
It's legal, a stimulant. Nicotine makes your heart beat faster and raises your blood pressure. When you inhale a cigarette, you also inhale tar and hundreds of chemical additives. Nicotine in any form is extremely addictive, on a level with heroin, and 50% of smokers will find it difficult to give up. By the age of 15, 1 in 5 young people has started to smoke. Often this is due to peer pressure. 40% of long-term smokers will die from smoking-related diseases.
Alcohol I'm wary of just because my dad's an alcoholic, so I always have a weird relationship with it.
When I do drink to get off my head.
Drinking.
We drink, yeah.
Alcohol.
We drink.
Tipple.
Beer.
Booze.
Legal, depressant. Alcohol is created when yeast is mixed with sugary substances. There are many types of alcohol used in products like shoe polish, car de-icer, perfume, but ethanol is the alcohol that we drink. People think that alcohol is an upper, i.e. a stimulant. It is actually a depressant, i.e. a downer. This means that it actually slows down the working of the brain. A person becomes drunk as the alcohol is absorbed through the stomach into the bloodstream. As the effects take hold, the drinker begins to lose control of their body. Research has shown that young women in their 20s are developing liver cirrhosis as a result of starting to drink at a young age and consequently binge drinking. Other research suggests that women in England and Ireland are the biggest drinkers in the world. Alcohol is restricted by age and you can't buy it until you're 18 years old. It is also an offence to buy booze for someone who's under 18.
We have a bigger problem with alcohol with young people simply because of its availability, the quantities that are being taken, and the fact that young people think that, okay, I might have a headache, I might have a hangover, I might be in a bit of a state the following day, but it will go away. And the difference between this generation and my generation is it's not that people didn't drink alcohol, it's not that those of us who are older don't enjoy a drink. It's actually that young people are drinking alcohol at such an early age that they're damaging their internal organs at a time when they're still growing, when they're still maturing. And I think we've got a major message that it's consumption of alcohol which is a very real danger for the future well-being of young people, simply because of the time they start drinking, the quantities they're drinking, and the nature of what they're drinking, including spirits.
Like, people don't really know how much they can drink, how much they can handle. Like, I've seen people going out and then the next minute I'll see them outside the club being sick, or proper throwing up, or going to hospital to get the stomach pumped.
I think everybody sort of my age group who has a similar lifestyle is aware that of the fact that you can consume more units in a night than you are even recommended for a week. It is something that you think about, I think, but you just apply kind of a carefree attitude and it's easy to forget about it.
Sometimes weed used to make me feel like proper lazy. I wouldn't be able to do anything in the morning, and I've nearly passed out off it once. And everything went white.
Marijuana.
Smoke cannabis regularly.
Try cannabis.
Weed.
Bud.
Cannabis.
Ganj.
Done weed quite a lot.
Bush.
Mostly cannabis.
Grass.
I smoke weed.
Sensor.
Cannabis comes in two forms. Herbal cannabis, illegal, Class B. The dried leaves and flowers of the female cannabis sativa plant. It is usually rolled up into a joint, sometimes on its own and sometimes with tobacco. Cannabis resin, illegal, Class B. Hash is a green or brown block of compressed resin. It is usually heated and crumbled into a joint made with tobacco, or smoked and eaten in a hash pipe.
Yeah, I would take drugs again, I would smoke weed again, because I like the way it feels. I feel like some people can take drugs and some people, they don't like react very well with them, but I thought it was alright, like with my body and everything.
I'm with my friends smoking weed now, and I felt like I went like cold, proper cold, so I went, oh, I'm going with me, I'm catching bus home. So I walked down this path, and then I started seeing white dots and that, and I thought, something's wrong here. So I kept walking anyway, and then to the point where I couldn't see anything, it was just pure white. And then, so I like grabbed this wall, sat on this wall for about 20 minutes until I chilled out a bit, and then carried on with my journey.
Speed, whiz, amphetamine.
Illegal, Class B, stimulant. Speed is a grey, white or dirty white powder, usually swallowed in a drink or eaten in a wrap of paper or sniffed up the nose. Tablets are taken by mouth, but are sometimes prepared for injection. Amphetamine is a stimulant, making people feel more awake and reduces the need to sleep or eat. It increases heartbeat and breathing rate. A single dose may last 3 to 4 hours, after which the user will feel very tired and sometimes depressed. Side effects may include depression, heavy mood swings, aggressive behaviour and paranoia, and sometimes psychosis.
My brother's older than me. He's in a bit of a bad crowd when he was younger, but a lot of his friends basically just take ketamine every night and go out and just don't go to bed.
Ketamine. Ketamine is sometimes sold as ecstasy. It comes as a white powder that can be snorted, or a liquid that can be injected, or a tablet that can be swallowed. It is a powerful general anaesthetic in humans and animals, an out-of-body and hallucinatory experience which may last for up to 3 hours. Like LSD, the effects are influenced by the user's mood and environment. The user may become physically unable to move. Risk could be serious injury, as ketamine numbs the body. Excessive doses carry some risks of breathing problems and heart failure. It may also cause the user to lose control over their bladder. Recent research shows young people are presenting with bladder problems after regular use of ketamine. Very dangerous if mixed with alcohol and other drugs.
Recently, with all the hype that's been going on in the newspapers about methadone, or another word for it is MCAT, there's been quite a lot of people sort of accessing the drop-in who know people that have been taking it or they've had a problem with it, but it's definitely on the rise.
MCAT.
GBL.
We know people who've done MCAT.
GHB.
And MCAT as well.
We're being asked more and more about legal highs, and it's a really live issue at the moment. Young people are asking us questions about it, families are asking us questions.
I've tried spice, which is like a substitute to weed, but that was horrible. That was a lot worse than actually trying weed.
Yeah, I tried salvia once and it didn't do much to me. Just like, in fact all it did was made my face like feel scrunched up, and that were it.
I've tried ease, but legal highs, but they didn't do anything to me, but my friend did. She overdosed, she ended up in hospital. They were called Make Music, and they're just like tablets, just like capsule things, and she took all 3 of them. We bought like packs, it's like 3 for a tenner, so we all bought packs. I shared my pack with 2 other people, so I only had 1. She took all 3, and we just spent the day. She was like throwing up and stuff, but she'd been drinking, so we took it as, ooh, calm down a bit, but not very serious. And then when we got home we got in the house about 10ish, and she kept ringing me, telling me that she don't feel well, she can't sleep, she's sweating, she's in bed laid naked, but she's absolutely boiling, she can't breathe, like all her chest. I'm saying, okay, call Frank, do you know what I mean? So she's up phone to me, I'm up phone to Frank, and then my other friend's on phone to Frank. And then they told us that we should just take her straight into hospital. I'd never touch him again after that. That was just a bit too scary.
We know that there's lots of different things available, that it's very fast moving, but we don't have a lot of information about what the long-term effects of using these drugs might be.
MDMA,
Ecstasy,
Pills,
MDMA,
lingers,
ecstasy,
pills,
MDMA.
Illegal Class A. Ecstasy usually comes in a tablet form and is swallowed with a soft drink. MDMA comes as a powder. The effects are euphoria, increased energy, nausea, calmness, lack of anger and hostility, feeling loved up. Usually it takes between 20 minutes to an hour for the drug to start working. It does not mix well with alcohol. Risk may be present with impure tablet or MDMA powder. Ecstasy tablets have been cut with speed, heroin and ketamine in the past. Other dangers with pills are panic, anxiety, confusion, fatigue, depression and irregular temperature control, collapse, coma or death.
There's quite a lot of people in my year who take cocaine, even though they're only 16.
Cocaine. Illegal. Class A. Cocaine is a white powder that is actually snorted up the nose with a straw or rolled up banknote. The effects are increased alertness, euphoria, energy, confidence, feeling of strength. It significantly raises heart rate and blood pressure. Because of the way it works in the brain, the user craves more and more of the drug in order to sustain the high. Panic, anxiety, irritability, aggression, psychosis, loss of appetite. Delusions may lead to risky sexual behaviour, which could result in hepatitis B, hepatitis C, HIV and STDs. Snorting cocaine can permanently damage the inside of the nostrils. Crack. Illegal. Class A. Crack is a smokable form of cocaine. It is smoked in specially made pipes and has a very intense quick effect. The high lasts about 10 minutes. Risks are psychological addiction to the high, panic attacks and anxiety, psychosis, increased aggression, wheezing, coughing, sore throat, chest infections are aid effects of smoking the drug. Overdose may have fatal consequences.
Young people would usually come across their first drug use from friends or older members of the family, older brother, older sister and their friends. We're finding that young people now are finding out much more about drugs by researching them on the internet. So they're going and they're making a deliberate choice to find this drug because it has that effect. So they're looking for certain things.
New substances are becoming available through the internet, what's being called legal highs. They're quite high profile in the media, so lots of young people are hearing about them.
More young people use drugs on their own than they used to, so it's a more solitary activity. There's more young people, this links very much with the legal highs phenomenon, who buy their drugs off the internet.
We know that there's lots and lots of different drugs available to young people, for some young people at least.
Video games really lend themselves more to stimulant drugs than drugs like alcohol, which are depressant drugs. More and more people are seeing quite young children playing video games and using quite strong energy drinks, marketed, branded drinks with very, very high doses of caffeine on. If you look at the back, they're very, very strong drinks, and they are, again, stimulant drugs.
Particularly at the moment, there's a real problem I'm noticing in secondary schools. You see a lot of young people nowadays drinking Red Bull, Relentless, all those kind of things that are available over the counter really easily.
Some people are suggesting that the marketing is making a deliberate link between energy drinks and the ability to do better at the video games that young people want to do. And I just wonder whether there is a pathway there from one to the other that we need to be careful about. When we work with specialist drug and alcohol workers, they do tend to work with people who have much more severe problems. So clearly what we get from them is a lot of concern about the changing patterns of drug use amongst young people. And those young people who are using in a more problematic way tend to be using several substances.
Most people who take illegal drugs are also taking alcohol and smoking. Sometimes those drugs can have a very bad effect together. So for instance, people who take GBL with alcohol are very likely to die because the combination is very dangerous.
In my experience, in the older age group, people do take a number of drugs. It's not very often that I see somebody who comes in purely with one drug. People will use different drugs for different effects. So they might take crack cocaine to kind of get a bit of a high, to be feeling really good. And then they'll take heroin as they kind of come down to kind of get them to feel normal again.
After smoking a quarter ounce of weed and then doing a few grams of MCAT with friends, we felt the need to do more and more drugs. This led to a gram of ketamine, which had all of us being violently sick and thrown up stomach acid and that. Hallucinations were also happening, which left us being somewhat traumatised that night and unsure of our health afterwards.
No, I don't think it is, and I think if it was, alcohol wouldn't be such an important part of our culture. And I think people can and do, and the vast majority, even in an area like Sheffield, which has some bigger problems than other parts of the country, even in Sheffield, the vast majority of adults who use alcohol use so in a safe, sensible, social way. And it is an important part of our culture. So there is an example of drug use that can be non-problematic.
I mean, we know young people, some young people take drugs. We know that as you go through adolescence, there's more drug taking. And that is potentially a problem because drugs are harmful.
Lots of people can take them for a while and then just leave them behind and they move on, they've moved through that phase.
I kind of feel sorry for young people because I think a small number of young people use drugs in a problematic way and the vast majority don't.
The young people that we're working with are very unlikely to be dependent on drugs. It does happen, but that's really quite rare. The problems they're likely to be experiencing are more around experimenting with different drugs. They're more at risk of overdose, making themselves really sick because they might be taking more than one drug at once, and there's real dangers around that. They might be more at risk of accident because they're not getting really quite out of it.
Those people who get into problems clearly need help, and drug use can cause other problems to society, but it's not the drug itself, it's not the chemical that causes that. The drug is a poor solution to other problems for most people.
Drug use is a really complicated question, and the reasons people use drugs, as I've said already, are very different. Some people use them because they want to have pleasure. Some people use them because they've got nothing else to do. And I think you can't generalise about drug use. And I can see circumstances in which, for many people, when there's nothing else in their life, drug use is the only kind of meaningful experience for them. And in fact, more than that, it actually gets them into an environment where they actually meet other people with similar attitudes and similar likes. So it's a very complicated field, and there isn't a simple solution to drug use. There's no one size fits all solution.
If you were to ask me which are the most dangerous drugs around at the moment, do you know, I'd have to say it's alcohol. And the reason for that is that alcohol is cheap, it's freely available, it's acceptable to everybody. And so people take far too much of it, probably far too frequently, and most people aren't concerned about it. They think it's okay. Everywhere you look, you'll see other people drinking alcohol. You'll go into a restaurant, you'll go into a pub, you'll be at home with your parents, they'll be having beer or wine. So it's considered safe, and we haven't grown up knowing that it's a problem. But of course, because people consider it safe, they probably take too much of it, and we're seeing more and more people with dependence problems. If alcohol and cigarettes were to be discovered today, they would be classified as drugs. They'd have to be, because of all the information that we have now about them, and their potential for abuse.
I mean, there's a really difficult question about drug use, is to what extent you try to protect people from harming themselves by taking things which might be dangerous, and to what extent you're trying to protect society from the consequences of people taking drugs which may harm other people. And what we're always trying to do is look at both of those.
And actually, there's little evidence that anything works to stop people experimenting. People have been doing it for millennia. We can nudge them towards experimenting with safer drugs, and we can nudge them towards using drugs in a safer way, but nothing has ever worked to completely stop people trying drugs in the first place.
But there is something about the human person that most humans do try to change the way their brain works by drugs, and very, very few humans have never taken drugs, if you include tobacco and alcohol. And I think that's because the human condition isn't ideal, and we're always looking to improve it. We're always looking to feel more relaxed, or more up, or more down. And some people use drugs, in order to get a different kind of experiences, to actually sort of take them into a different dimension of mental processing. And if that could potentially be very helpful to them. It certainly can give them insights into themselves and other people they didn't have. So I think, again, like the harms of drugs, the reasons why people use drugs are many, and you can't generalise. And some individuals will benefit, others will have negative impact.